Welcome to the fifth Junior Golf Recruit Podcast, the show that covers everything regarding junior and college golf. I'm Peter Festi, and today we're discussing golf fitness with Kristian Jones, owner of Excellence in Exercise and a TPI certified trainer. A little departure from our other podcast with coaches, but I think this one's important for juniors to hear and understand. Kristian has over two decades of experience with personal and corporate training and certifications specific to golf. And Kristian brings a wealth of experience to help junior and adult golfers maximize their performance on the golf course. So, Kristian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Let's start out first with just the TPI. What is TPI? Why is that important to golfers?
So TPI is an educational organization that's, dedicated to the study of how the human body functions when swinging the golf club. And so they've put together, it stands for the Titleist Performance Institute, and they have put together data for over 20 plus years of some of the highest ranked golfers in the world down to amateurs that can get in to see them. And it's everything from watching them swing the club, watching them how they move in the gym, 3D motion capture, force plates, all the fun stuff that you hear about. But essentially, they have put in the practice from chiropractic, physical therapy, and personal training and combined everything together to figure out how to maximize somebody's potential physically so that they can swing the club the way that it should be swung. That taking into consideration that we all do have some kind of limitation, whether we're not strong enough, whether we've had multiple injuries, but they have, again, they've covered the gamut of, injuries to people that are just physically supermen to how they can actually swing the golf club the right way based on what your body is capable of doing.
All right.
It's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. So let's talk about from the golfer's perspective, two critical people in lowering their scores on the golf course. One is the golf instructor. And a lot of people have a golf instructor and think that's the single path to it. The other is a personal trainer. And all swing flaws, as I know in my golf game that you've helped me with, all swing flaws are not created equal.
True. Absolutely.
And a personal trainer can fix some portion of the swing flaw by activating a muscle group or something that may be restricting the swing. I first saw this probably 7-8 years ago when my son Matthew was down. He was playing a tournament in Sea Island, and Randy Myers came to talk to the group at the tournament, and that was the first time. I think it was him and Daniel Gray, and it was the first time I'd ever heard somebody say the swing instructor may not be able to fix everything. You may need to go to a trainer to fix something, and then go back to the swing instructor. So that was very eye-opening a long time ago, and then you started helping Matthew not too long after that. So that was good.
Absolutely.
But why is there such a two different paths of something that could be swing related by a swing instructor and fitness related by a fitness trainer?
Absolutely. So if you back it up a little bit, the original historical model was just most players just had a swing coach, right? And so we've all had, not all of us, but a lot of us have gone to the instruction route and worked with an instructor to try to get ourselves better. And they show you maybe a picture, a video. Here's, one of the top players in the world doing this. This is what you're not doing. I want you to get there. But the missing piece was, okay, is there some type of physical examination to say, are they physically actually able to get in that position? And so, again, over the evolution of adding fitness, Tiger Woods, but then let's take it even farther to the TPI, Institute and their educational training. There's a team approach now in golf. And so not only do you have an instructor, but you have, preferably a TPI instructor who speaks the same language as a TPI trainer and vice versa. But they know that, okay, they've determined there are swing faults that actually you know, are the cause of, or the cause of it is a lot of times a body issue. Okay. And so, as an example, just to kind of throw it out there, they might show you a picture of Adam Scott at the top of his swing
Hmm.
and they say, I want you to get here. Well, most people don't know, but Adam Scott's the most flexible guy they've ever tested on tour. His metrics are off the roof. He's like an Olympic gymnast as far as what he can do with his shoulders and everything. And that can, for me, they show me that picture. And if it's not an instructor who really understands the body as far as what it's able to do, whether it's, flexibility, mobility, strength, you're just kind of, you're pushing a rock up a hill trying to get something to happen that's probably not going to happen unless you get somebody to physically assess you and go, okay, there's a reason he can't get his hands up to the top behind him because they don't know. But take myself, for instance, in my injury pathology, I've separated both my shoulders multiple times. I don't have great shoulder mobility to set a club back behind me very well. And so it goes back to there's not, TPI really likes to say there's not one perfect way to swing the club for everybody, but there is a perfect way for you based on your body capabilities, if that makes sense. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, the instructor is very important. The physical, your trainer who actually has a golf fitness background is just as important. And then they need to be speaking the same language. So it needs to be a team because I used this caveat with you multiple times when I first started working with Matthew. I'm like, look, I'm not a golf instructor. Yes, I do understand the swing. I had to learn it to figure out, okay, what over the top meant, what casting meant, what a sway, a slide. I know what those mean. And again, being a golfer, I have experienced all of those myself. But knowing, okay, if the instructor says to me, hey, he's, casting the club, he's coming over the top, I know when I physically assess that golfer, there's probably a few physical characteristics that are going to show up. Lack of core strength, lack of glute strength, lack of shoulder mobility. Those coincide with those things. And again, barring it being a true structural injury where maybe you've been in a car accident or something where you've had to have surgery, a lot of those things can be fixed through work in the gym.
It's amazing. Um, I wasn't 100% on board when I first heard this, but as you know, I'm way above 100% by now. Um, so let's get a question out there first. Then, when should a junior golfer start with a trainer, and how is this different than maybe a kid that says, "I'm going to the gym by myself, but just doing whatever workout routine that they come up with."
Sure. So I would say, you're probably looking at later years of middle school, possibly seventh grade, eighth grade. It depends on the physical maturity of the person. Now, I'm not saying that if somebody brought me, somebody who was 12, I would turn them away. But if they're younger, realistically, they just need to be playing sports. They need to be developing athleticism, the normal, movement patterns that come with running, jumping, learning to use the ground, whether it's doing a layup or out playing flag football and learning to cut and be fast and everything. Because again, if you're not playing some type of sport and you decide to specialize somebody, let's say golf, you specialize a golfer at the age of 6 or 7, you're really, I'm not going to say it can't happen, but golf is a fine motor sport, and a 6 or 7 or 8 year old has not developed gross motor skills yet. They don't know how to jump properly. They don't know how to skip. They don't know how to, throw something while using their legs and pushing through all these natural things that develop over time. Back to your point about the gym, I mean, if you're just going to the gym and lifting, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you can actually narrow it down to some things that the kid or the athlete really needs to work on. And again, this goes back to the assessment. And we've done it with, multiple clients. I've done it with Matthew when he was playing really elite golf. But not only is there a physical assessment, but there's a strength assessment too. Okay. Where are they deficient or where are they strong in? And so it ultimately sets you up where you're not guessing on what this athlete should be working on, because if their legs are crazy strong and they have no upper body, it's just low hanging fruit. Okay, I'm going to work on some upper body strength because there is pushing and pulling motions in the golf swing. As far as an age on when a a young athlete should get with a trainer probably by the time they're in eighth or ninth grade, because if you're not, you're way behind the eight ball in elite golf for sure by that time. I mean,
Yeah, certainly. And when coaches are starting to evaluate you around 14, 15, 16, and they're starting to assemble their team or make offers around 16. If you're starting after 16, you're certainly behind the ball. And at least every Division I team that I know of has golf workouts as a part of their schedule. A
absolutely.
number of them have facilities, including Alabama, where you went, has their own weight room in their new facility, and a lot of
Yep.
teams do that. So as kids are progressing, let's go a slightly different direction, but as they're progressing and from playing just 9-hole tournaments to 18-hole one-day tournaments to 36 holes, 54 holes, 72 holes, um, that it takes a little bit of a toll on the body as you're playing multiple days. And in college, for those that don't know, to the typical tournament is Monday, Tuesday, with Monday being a 36-hole day
Ooh,
and Tuesday an 18-hole day. And the 36-hole day on Monday, in a lot of cases, they don't even get a break in between. They just go from the 18th hole to the 19th hole and just keep going, and they get lunch along the way or something. But so how does, aside from specific things that are impacting a swing, how does training impact your ability to perform consistently across multiple rounds?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, bottom line is endurance, right? Physical and
Yeah.
muscular endurance to be able to perform your sport, specifically golf, at your highest level or highest capabilities. And everything you're saying goes across any kind of sport, whether it's a tournament for basketball, a tournament for baseball, a tournament for football, but golf specifically, because it's way more physical than people realize. I mean, we now know it's a very athletic sport. It's a very explosive sport. You're burning through a lot of calories. So it comes down to not only building, I mean, you need cardiovascular endurance. There's a lot of hill climbing. I mean, you need the muscular endurance, and then you need the proper diet and nutrition as well to fuel yourself. And that's a really, kind of missed element of the whole, training model. I mean, you can pound balls all you want, you can play all you want, you can lift all you want, but if you don't have the proper fuel, I mean, what is it, 72 holes in 2 days? You're just gonna bonk at some point in time. And so, I would start with muscular endurance. I would definitely learn and try to teach your athlete how to eat properly, nutrition wise, just things to take with them on the course. It's going to help them from bonking mid round. It's if you watch on tour nowadays, I mean, every time you see those guys, they're eating something, right? I mean,
Mhm.
they've got some kind of little drink that they're shaking up. They're chewing on something, but it's bars, it's trail mix. I mean, nobody's like throwing down a burger or something like that, but it's a banana, something to keep their glycemic index high, where their blood sugar never gets too low. Because not only do you feel the effects physically, I think more importantly in golf, you start to feel it mentally, and course management becomes an issue where you're just like, screw it. I'm gonna try to hit this ball and, put it in a window that I shouldn't. Where earlier, when you were kind of, for lack of a better way to describe it, you've got enough calories to, energize proper brain function, you would make a better decision. It could be the difference between you making the cut or winning or coming in second, or if you're on a college team, scoring high enough to get to play the next week. And so, there's a lot of different levels of it, but the endurance part, the nutrition part, the working out part of it all adds up to just set you up for better success on the course.
Yeah, and for kids out there that are trying to figure out why, they had a really good round going. They were, whatever, even par through 14, 15, and then suddenly 16, 17, 18, they make a couple bogeys or a double, and the round gets away from them. Part of that can be just come down to fitness, and your body was okay up through that point. And I know when Matthew first went to see you, one of the things I told him was, when I was in college and playing tennis, our coach always trained us. We used to play at that time. We used to play best of three singles followed by best of three doubles. They don't do that anymore, but so you potentially were playing 6 sets in one day, and so the training that we went through was I want the end of that sixth set to be just as good as the first game in the first set, and
Absolutely.
that's how he trained us. And so if you got done in 2 sets in each of those, you felt fine. You weren't exhausted at all. And so that was one thing that I told him was you're trying to train your body golf wise for to not have the gas tank just empty at 18, but it's still half full and you could keep going.
Yeah. And then, for again, easy things to work on, one, we talked about the nutrition. Two, and I've talked to multiple of my junior clients about this and some of my college clients, is the difference between carrying your bag and pushing your bag. And some tournaments will allow you to. I think most places do. And there's this macho thing of you got to learn to schlep your bag for 18 holes. Well, guess what? The science shows that if you and I are playing and you're schlepping your bag over your shoulders and I'm pushing, within 3 holes, there's a 30% decrease in power from the guy who's walking with the bag on their shoulders. So if you have the advantage to use a push cart, use it. It is absolutely one of the best things you can do out there. It'll conserve energy. And you're carrying around a bag that could weigh 20, 30 pounds sometimes for 18 holes. And it, can promote really bad golf posture by the end of the day.
Yeah. I know on the men's and the women's side, I know Stanford for a long, long time has been pushing carts, and we know they've got smart people up there. So
yeah, absolutely.
one of the other things too, I know there's a lot of juniors that look forward and want to play in either the U.S. Junior or the U.S. Girls Junior each year in July. The gauntlet that they have to go through to win that, I'm not sure that they fully understand it. You're going through and playing potentially 10 rounds over 8 days. So there's usually 2 courses involved in the stroke play. So you're playing 2 practice rounds on 2 different courses, then 2 rounds of stroke play, and then 6 more rounds of match play. And in the match play, 2 of those days are 36-hole days. So if you don't think that the person that holds the trophy up at the end there has not been to a trainer or is not in great shape, I would guess
You're
that,
you're fooling yourself.
yeah.
Yep.
Now that being said, given what I've heard people do to train for a marathon, they don't go out and run marathons every day to train for a marathon. So
Nope.
if you're going to play 10 rounds over 8 days, it doesn't mean at home that you have to go and replicate that necessarily. But what would you do? Is there anything that you do specific for a tournament like that to make sure that you're ready?
So by that time, hopefully you've got enough golf under your belt that the amount of rounds like that isn't going to be a shock to it's going to be a shock to anybody's system. I mean, 10 rounds in 8 days. But by that time, you've played enough golf that mentally you should expect it. I think probably the most important point by that time, especially if you're doing what we already talked about, the work in the gym, nutrition, it's going to be your recovery in between the nights, the night after you've played, right? The mobility, the foam rolling work that I'm so adamant about all the time. You got to undo some of the damage you do. And so ultimately, I think that's a really big component of something as arduous as that, of playing in, the USAM, where you're just subjecting your body to something like that. You wouldn't really want to work out. Yeah, you could do some band work and some things to activate before you go out in your normal warm-ups, but I would just make sure, one of the components of that is going to be recovery. All the mobility modalities that we've worked on, whether it's, a lacrosse ball, keeping your glutes loose, taking some of the back stuff away, some post-round, mobility and stretching, some pre-round, which is going to become more and more important as you progress in something like that. If you make it to the later rounds, because you're just putting a lot of miles on your wheels in a short amount of time, and so that can be a really big thing too. Because if you're warmed up properly and ready to go on the first hole and somebody else is taking them three holes because they just aren't doing some type of, recovery to get themselves primed to play at their highest level again the next day, you've got a massive advantage over that guy you're playing against or girl that you're playing against.
Yeah, no doubt. Um, there's a couple of new technologies in the last 5, 10 years or so. I don't know how long it's been around, but 3D motion capture of your swing plate or swing force plates,
The force plates, yeah.
force plates, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. How has that changed um, your ability to assess um, anything?
Oh, so the 3D motion capture is pretty amazing because it allows you to actually, like a golf pro who uses it can send me a graph. And the graph essentially shows what's called the kinematic sequence. It's how you swing. Are you in sequence? And a lot of people aren't. I mean, I'm guilty of that. A lot of amateurs aren't, but ultimately it'll show you using colors and lines on a graph what the proper sequence is. And the proper sequence should be, your hips initiating the swing, your thorax following, your arms third, your hands in the club fourth, and then same sequence on the way back. And they can graph it and show you if somebody's in sequence or not. Most amateurs aren't. Most amateurs might start with their hands, then then their hips go or their upper body goes. And so it could show you that where there's a glitch in their sequence of their swing, right? And so that's amazing because it could tell you, okay, well, maybe they're not strong enough in their core or their glutes to maintain their posture, so something is giving before it should, as far as in the sequence of the swing. To the force plates are really, really cool because a lot of the science over the last probably decade, but more in the last few years, are showing you how important the ground is. Using the ground to push off to create power, right? Um, Everyone thinks it's through throwing your arms and all this other stuff. Your legs are probably one of the biggest components of power there, and it starts with, can you push off the ground? And so it's like jumping. If you were going to do a layup, right, or jump up to try to slam dunk a ball, the force plates will show you how does your weight shift in the swing. Okay, on the back swing, how much weight are they putting into the right foot? On the downswing, how much are they into the left? When they're actually making impact, are they even touching the ground? Because a lot of these guys are jumping off the ground. It shows you that they've got the capabilities. And so that kind of information given to me as a trainer can help me identify already, okay, their force plate numbers are really, really low because they don't have any strength in their legs, or they don't
Mhm.
necessarily know the mechanics on how to actually push through the ground, which is something you can work on in the gym for sure without a club, which will translate to what you're doing. Excuse me, Peter, just a second. Yep, sorry about that.
No
Yeah,
problem.
but the but that yeah, the force plate stuff it's a game changer because it, again, I mean, the numbers don't lie. It's like, think of sitting on a scale and rocking from one side. Okay, I weigh 50 pounds on this side, and then I rock to this side, I weigh 80 pounds on that side. Am I getting into my left side, or is it I go back and it's 80, and as I swing, it stays 80 on my back foot? Well, that means that you're laying back. You can't actually, again, back to what we were talking about, the 3D motion capture, it would show you a really bad sequence in your swing.
It's amazing. I didn't. I just remembered this one. The last TPI class, I think, or what have you, that you went to. They were talking about injury prevention or
Mm-hmm.
predicting injury prevention, I believe. Uh,
Absolutely.
that's an
This,
amazing
this is one of my
tool to me.
favorite, yeah, one of my favorite things because it was eye opening to me as well. And so, again, doing the strength test to see what somebody's capabilities are on and they look at four things. They look at pulling strength, they look at pushing strength, they look at jumping, how high somebody can jump, and then they look at core strength, throwing a ball, can they throw it really far, stabilizing their core. And there are metrics that are set that are your normalized numbers that you should be able to reach. They have obviously PGA Tour averages, and then they have, what your below standards are. And then, we can test that and then go back and say, okay, you're low and you're low everywhere, right? You're just everything's not very strong. But then you might have somebody that swings a club, 150 miles an hour doing either speed sticks or the stack or something like that. If you're low everywhere, but you've got really high swing speed, that's a caution signal to me that this person, it's not whether they're going to get hurt, it's when they're going to get hurt. Because it's essentially like you've got a ton of horsepower, but you've got a car with no chassis to support it. And so it's cool because you're not guessing. I'm not guessing at what this person is. I've asked multiple clients lately because a lot of people are very much in tune with, speed work is now a big deal. And I'm like, all right, how fast you swing the club? They'll tell me. I'll take them through their physical screen and I'm like, all right, we've got to get stronger in these areas. And specifically, let's say somebody doesn't have good core strength or glute strength and they're swinging the club, over 130 miles an hour. That's a caution signal that they're, and you're not strong in your core. You're not strong here. You've got some serious speed, but putting that kind of tension and torque on a body that's not strong enough to support it is just a recipe for disaster. At some point in time, you're gonna break down.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I think when Matthew first saw you, you told me something that I didn't think was an issue, but as adults, older adults, you look at kids in high school and you go, man, I wish I could be that flexible.
Where it looks like the club goes around their body twice when they swing it, and they're,
Exactly.
right?
But you had said that you could be hyper flexible, and
Absolutely.
that could be a bad thing. And Matthew was hyper flexible, and he was going past a point for which it didn't really uh, add anything to the swing or the swing speed or what have you.
Yep.
So just talk about hyper flexibility in kids in high school and middle school, for that matter. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Sure. So hypermobility, again, if you don't play a sport and you can do all kinds of crazy things flexibility wise, that's probably fine. But specifically for golf specific reasons, again, we talk about needing good shoulder flexibility, good uh, hip flexibility. You have to have bumpers on your range of motion. Your joints were only meant to go certain amount of way each, whether you're, rotating your shoulder, whether you're turning your back, whether you're turning your hips. And again, back to we look at some of our younger athletes that are in middle school and high school, and you see their shoulder turn, and you're like, man, that's amazing. I mean, they're up here, past parallel, everything's ramrod straight. I'm like, how do they do that? It's, some people have hypermobility. The problem with hypermobility, again, is that one, it shows that they don't have enough strength to stop themselves at a certain point, right? It'll just keep going. And so now you're putting some really, bad pressure on joints that aren't meant to go that far, right? I mean, you could do
Yeah.
it for a while, but, again, without those bumpers, you're going to start tearing up a back, upper, some neck, shoulders, hip, anything. It's just, it's like taking a rubber band. If you pull it over and over and over and over again, at some point in time, it's going to snap. If that rubber band has some bumpers to keep you from pulling it too far all the time, it'll maintain its tensile strength without breaking. Same thing with young athletes that are hypermobile. I mean, you got to be careful. It's a great thing to have. We want, the mobility, but it's got to have some checkpoints on it to keep it from going too far.
Well, and what was surprising to me was that, I can't remember how long it took, whether it was months or what have you, but his swing was shorter and he was hitting it longer,
Yeah, absolutely. It just
which was
he's,
frustrating when I'm trying to beat him. But, um, it was just kind of counterintuitive that he would swing shorter and hit longer. But
yeah,
so we talk about a lot of college teams are doing training and so forth. Should juniors, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but should juniors wait until they get to college to start this, or
absolutely not. They need to be doing it by the time they're in high school for sure. Because again, your top elite players probably already have a team. And if you're not working on, and again, golf is such a smaller team as far as you might have 8 slots on a team or something like that. I mean, there's not 50 people to choose from. They want the best of the best. And if you're not working on this strength and mobility and speed and just properly taking care of your body and realizing that this is a sport that needs all these boxes checked to perform at your highest level, again, there's 30 other people out there that are doing it. So yeah, you need to be. And I would venture to guess rare would you find somebody who's signed by a top Division I program that's not had some kind of uh, physical training, and combined with their golf instruction. But and I would absolutely say that probably half of them now has some type of TPI person touching them along the way.
But and I was out at East Lake yesterday for the East Lake Cup, and I was following the last match, which was Jackson Coiven from Auburn versus Hiroshi Tai from Georgia Tech. Both of them had amazing summers. One NCAA champion, one amateur champion, and um, Jackson is not the biggest guy. He has an enormous speed. But Hiroshi was a much um, bigger guy, bigger muscles, what have you, and was out hitting him, even though the swing speeds Hiroshi's looked slow, Jackson looked high, but it didn't necessarily match with the swing speed. And I don't know if that was completely just muscle, but now in the end, Jackson beat him. He's a very, very talented player.
Right.
Yeah, nobody disputes that. But anyway, all right. This one for junior players, I think, this comes down to one of those cases of, do I listen to my parents don't know anything. I don't listen to them and what have you. Kids that are in high school, especially, when they go to play a round or play a tournament or what have you, their warm up is generally just, I showed up at the range for the first time that day and started swinging a club just cold. Not, they may start with a wedge, so they're starting a little bit slower, but when we see the videos on or watching the PGA Tour, and they always see the guys arriving at the course in their gym clothes, and they're going to the gym before they go to the range. Why on earth would somebody at that level go to the gym first before going to the range?
Yeah, again, you got to prime the mechanism. I mean, we've learned that, it's a very explosive sport. It's hard on your body. I mean, just as an example, looking at heart rates while hitting a driver, I've seen people's heart rate get up to 187, 190. It's explosive, it's anaerobic. You can't tell me that's not taxing on your joints, on your muscles. And so to go out and just start hitting cold and not warming up your joints and doing some motions that are, just at the simplest point, something that mimics some of your golf swing, whether you're standing there moving your shoulders or something like that. But now we know that you need to, like any sport, properly warm up. And so you see the tour players. I'm absolutely certain your top college programs are doing this now. But again, easier said than done because you don't see it as much. But your high school guys think, I can just show up and hit. If you have the time, who cares what you look like on the range? Do a proper warm up. It takes 5 minutes. If you've got the time, take a foam roller with you or a small lacrosse ball and sit on the range on the mat and roll your hips out and roll your glutes out. It takes 5 minutes. The studies show that like 5 to 7 minutes of mobility work is as good as hitting 20 balls. You're just getting blood flow to the areas that you're going to use because again, I mean, I've had high school clients come to me and be like, their parents are like, man, he's really messed up. His back's screwed up, all this other stuff. And I'm like, what kind of warm up are you doing? What kind of after you're done? I mean, you and I have talked about this, till we're blue in the face, but you've got to undo the damage you do. And again, it only takes 5 to 7 minutes to really do it properly to whether it's a foam roller, whether it's a lacrosse ball, some kind of tool to get some mobility going, to one, warm up, and then two, to cool down with. You got to prime the mechanism to use it, and then you've got to kind of undo some of the damage of the just constantly swinging in one direction over and over again. But yeah, for a high school kid, even if it's as simple as doing some air squats, doing some lunges, adding some rotational capabilities in there, grabbing a golf club. We've all seen it, I mean, people on the range doing it, and most people just look at them and don't, they think they look weird. Who cares what weird looks like? I mean, does a 68 look weird when you're done? I mean, and the fact that you can continue to still play too, right? Because your body feels good and you're taking care of it. But I've had too many of my younger high school clients, over the last couple seasons where the parents call me and they're in DEFCON 5 because, their son or daughter has, they're hurting here and there. And I'm like, are you doing what we talked about? Well, no, I kind of stopped. And then we'll back everything up. They'll come in for a workout and it's not even a workout. It's 30 minutes of mobility. And they walk out and they're like, man, I feel really good. And I'm like, imagine that, and I'll get them to swing the club a little bit. And they're like, man, that feels really good. I can get back into that position. So again, barring it being a true structural injury, you can fix a lot of this stuff on your own or prevent it on your own by just doing the proper things before or after a round. I mean, just little known fact, 60% of the tour has back pain, lower back pain. And most of those guys are doing this stuff now. So if they have back pain, think about amateurs that aren't doing it. And if you're a high school kid who thinks you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, just know that bill is going to come due at some point in time if you don't do the proper things.
Yeah. Well, and also, especially for juniors that are watching this, when you look at the rankings, and especially as you get higher up into the top 1,000, top 500, top 250 in your class, and you're thinking, gosh, if I was only one stroke lower per round on average, I would go from 500 to 250 or 250 to 150. It's all these little things that add up.
And a lot of it is low hanging fruit, though.
Yeah.
If you take a step back and use a little bit of common sense, and again, it's easier said than done when it's a high school, player who just has way different priorities as far as, but they know where they want to go. But if you can explain to them, hey man, this could make all the difference in the world. Watch so and so over there. They never warm up. Yeah, he's doing good. How do you beat him? Start warming up. Take care of yourself better. And then pretty soon you're beating them by 2 or 3 strokes. But it's these little things here and there that add up to, make the whole package.
What you might have just touched on this, but what are the most common injuries for junior players, and how do they prevent that?
Low back injuries for sure. Again, back to hypermobility, or unfortunately the fact that we're such a sedentary society. The phones, computers, and our high school kids are on computers more than they ever were nowadays. And so the being sitting for too long and then going out and not properly warming up and trying to hit balls. But low back is big, shoulders are big, and I think this is way more to do with the phone posture all the time. You're forward, so this external rotation of holding the club is inhibited, and it's sad because I see it way more with kids now than I ever did with my juniors than I ever did. I mean, it was more adults because adults had spent 20 years, in an office on a computer. And I'm seeing it with, my teenage clients now because they've got a phone in their hand and they've got that forward shoulder length. And it's a shame. But yeah, that's absolutely low back and shoulders, I think, are a really big one. Because again, the shoulder mobility of turning is affected. And so they start forcing something. The next thing you know, they've got some kind of rotator cuff issue going on, or they've got some neck issue because they're forcing the club to get to where they need. And so without the proper, mobility, it's just it's like driving around with the emergency brake on. You can do it for a while, but at some point in time, the tire is going to blow. Because right, I mean, they're like, ooh, that feels a little dodgy. Whatever, I'll keep swinging, and it goes on for a couple of days, and then pretty soon they're in the middle of the tournament, and they're like, Dad, I can't lift my arm anymore, and it's something. Again, back to the whole TPI stuff. I used to do this with Matthew, your son, whenever he was playing really elite. I'd test him all the time just to see where he's at. You don't just do it once and go, because it changes. It changes weekly. It can change over 3 days. It can change over a 3 day tournament where his external rotation's great, and by the end of the tournament he might be like this. When we're like, hey man, we really need to get you loosened up a little bit, because one, it's probably affecting your swing and what your normal swing feels like. But you test and retest, and it's very simple to do, to know whether, yeah, am I firing on all cylinders at the level that I want to be.
Yeah. Um, well, that's great. Kristian, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely,
Uh,
Pete. I really,
you're
you
Go
know me.
ahead.
I could do this all day long.
I know. If you're in the Atlanta area and you'd like to meet with Kristian or talk more about this, go to their website address, excellenceandexercise.com. I'll put it on the screen and in the comments as well. And also, if you're not in the Atlanta area, you want to meet with somebody that is a TPI certified trainer in your local area, go to mytpi.com/experts to find one in your local area. And as a reminder, also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified of future podcasts. Hit the like button for this one to help things move along. And then plug now for the future. We've got Scott Fawcett again from Decade Golf coming up in the end of November. It'll probably get posted in the beginning of December. We've got Jim Owen from Oglethorpe and Chris Zambie from the U.S. national team coming back in January to tell us everything that they've done in 2024 to advance that program. So anyway, thank you very much, Kristian.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Have a good one.